here is how innovators, disruptors, both large and small, work in the staid old world of utilities. We got a little taste of that. Am I on here? We good? Yeah. We got a little taste of that earlier. We're talking about electric vehicles and battery storage with GM. So Robyn Beavers is a Senior Vice President of Innovation at NRG Energy, and Matt Rogers is the founder and Vice President of Engineering at Nest Labs. So we'll get a little bit of what just each of you do if you're not familiar with either. We'll start with you, Robyn. You got a sort of a new position in a new part of a company. You've created this hotshot team and this thing called Station A here in San Francisco. What the heck's going on? What do you do? What's your mandate?
Our mandate is, well, I think you could call us a few different things. You could call us the internal disruptor team. You could call us an internal startup. You could call us the skunk works. You could call us an accelerator. But really what we're trying to do is build a new business for NRG around smart, connected, distributed generation. So whatever it takes to do that, that's what we're doing.
Well, what are you doing? Give us a little bit more depth about where you're going now. And this is, you've only been there for maybe about 5 months?
I've been there 6 months. My team's been there for about 3 months. So yeah, so we all have engineering technical backgrounds, but also a mix of entrepreneurial experience. So we have a couple of concrete projects we're working on where we're actually literally doing front-end engineering, but then we also are on the hook for, kind of broader strategic thinking about, how you earn money off of some of these new implementations of distributed generation. So a lot of stuff that's been discussed over the last 3 days is, we're definitely thinking about, and we're just trying to really push it through in a kind of a way that's actually significant for NRG to keep evolving as a, one of the largest independent power producers in the US.
And so what are they hoping will come out? Is this whole new business models, whole new businesses, whole new technologies? What are you going to be doing?
Sure.
Yes to all?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a blank sheet of paper for us, and it's great to be, we're sort of a new separate team, but we can also collaborate with a lot of the interesting sides of NRG. I mean, most people don't know, we're not a utility, actually. A lot of people get confused about that. We generate electricity either from the wholesale perspective, and we actually often sell electricity to customers, which is where we're able to partner with a great company like Nest. We have electric vehicle infrastructure company. We have solar panels everywhere. There's a lot going on, and so we're able to have some of our own space to think and be creative, but we also have a great platform to leverage, with the company.
So NRG Energy is based in Massachusetts?
No, their headquarters are in Princeton and Houston.
Princeton and Houston, that's right.
Yeah.
And you're based here in San Francisco. Tell us about Station A.
Well, so my first task in this new role is to figure out, I had to build a team and find an office. And I quickly realized that NRG actually owns the old power plant in Potrero Hill that was shut down about 2 or 3 years ago.
About a mile from here.
Yeah, about a mile from here, right on the bay. And it was once a very controversial part of the city. I'd say it's very historic. It was the first power plant in San Francisco, and then it was actually the last power plant in San Francisco. And it was called Station A because it was the first one that PG&E built here. So I immediately moved us there, and we renovated a little warehouse to make, to be cozy for us. And we're in the shadow of, legacy infrastructure as we try to develop the future infrastructure. Great. So we love it there.
Great. Matt, I would guess if I said Nest Labs that pretty much everyone, and ask a free association game, most people would raise their hand and say thermostats. The Nest thermostat has become legendary. Give us a little bit of a bigger profile beyond that.
So how many of you guys saw our announcement last week? All right, so our PR team is not doing a good job then. so last week we announced a new product, our first new product since the thermostat, and we did a smoke alarm, a smoke and carbon monoxide alarm. And one of the, again, most unloved products in the home. Everybody has them, but they don't work. They're frustrating. They wake up in the middle of the night. Kind of horrible experiences. Supposed to keep you safe, but they don't. Following this kind of theme from the thermostat of finding really unloved, unsexy, but yet critically important products in your home, and then totally reinventing them. Hey, Nest, we love the unloved. That's what we do. Before Nest, my partner and I did iPods and iPhones. Again, like products of very high innovation, very high user experience, but a product area where there's kind of lots of people looking at it. There's really not a lot of companies looking at great home products, so it's a huge space for us. We're really excited to be here and to work on it. Amazing team, basically put together kind of the old iPhone team from Apple, and basically put them to work on very, very boring products in the home.
Has anybody not seen the Nest thermostat, I'm sorry?
Actually, how many of you guys are current customers? Okay, so my sales team's not doing a good job either. What's going on here? So we announced our thermostat about 2 years ago. It's a learning thermostat. It's beautiful, it's round, very iconic design. And so the kind of basic premise is it learns from you. So you don't program your thermostat. Actually, in fact, almost no one programs their thermostat. People waste energy, they kind of set it to 72 degrees and it just runs all the time. It turns out if you program it, you could save energy, like when you're home versus away versus the middle of the night, those kinds of things. And that's a really hard thing to do for most people. So we build a product that learns from your experiences. As you turn the dial, it takes your inputs and basically learns. It has a bunch of sensors and algorithms in it that turn down when you're away, keeps track of kind of the weather, a bunch of different things. It's a really intense kind of product, but with a kind of beautiful exterior. All this complexity, all this technology is kind of hidden behind the user. So it's a really easy experience, but yet there's a lot behind there.
And it's all Wi-Fi enabled, so you can turn up or down the temperature from a cyber cafe in Kathmandu or wherever you can get online.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you have this cool product, not cheap, not inexpensive, but very well regarded and the cool product. And one of the ways you've gone to market is through utilities. Tell us about those partnerships with utilities and
Yes.
and companies like NRG.
Right. So we went to market 2 years ago with the premise of let's build a consumer business. And we sold it online, we sold it in retail. It was going great.
It's $249.
It's $249. Yeah. So it's very expensive for a thermostat. That said, it does a lot more. It does a lot more than a normal thermostat, and it actually looks good, unlike anything you got today. And the retail business was going great. And this company NRG approached us about how can we work together. And they had a bunch of different ideas. And one of the ideas is NRG runs a bunch of deregulated utilities, energy companies in Texas and the Northeast.
Green Mountain Energy.
Green Mountain Energy, Reliant,
Yeah.
Right.
and now an energy brand itself, right?
Yes, correct.
And the premise behind these deregulated utilities is that consumers get to pick what provider they'll use for their electrons. Like much like with your cell phone, you pick AT&T or Verizon, you pick which one has the best services for you. And working with NRG, we realized that we actually could provide a really good bundle, where they could provide a Nest and provide a great story on energy savings and a great face to energy, and get people to sign up for energy plans. And it's a very, very successful program. We went gigantic in Texas. You can't drive in Houston or Dallas without seeing billboards about Nest and Reliant working together. And we're now doing the same thing in the Northeast. It's a very, very successful program. So that's deregulated. In the regulated states, it's all around energy savings. So you guys probably know this. There's a lot of mandates around energy efficiency dollars, kind of regulated for the utilities, and they can't unlock profits without this. We actually save a lot of energy. It turns out thermostats, when used correctly, could save 10 to 20% off your bill, which is phenomenal. It's if you look at kind of the spectrum of things you can do to save energy, kind of like behavioral stuff is like a 1 to 3%. Thermostat could be 10 to 20%. Very, very big numbers. So the regulated companies love this in that we actually quantify energy savings. It's really easy to know. You measure it, and you can actualize that savings. And now with kind of our version of demand response, where we actually kind of put the control in the user's hands and save energy in peak times, energy companies love that too.
So this, I would imagine, has proved not as easy as it sounds. You make it sound like this great, no-brainer kind of thing. And I don't want to put you on the spot. I live here in the Bay Area. PG&E, which I think is really one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive, regulated investor-owned utilities in the United States, isn't yet offering this here, and it's they're your service provider too in Palo Alto. What's the obstacle? What's going on there? What can you tell us about that?
So what I've learned, and this is again very different than kind of the fast world of high tech, is that the regulatory space is very slow, and but budget cycles and approvals process, like it could take 2 years. So where we could build an entirely new product, get it to market, and have hundreds of thousands of customers in under a year, you just can't do that in the utility space. I mean, like, these things take time. And fortunately, we were able to slot into the right regulatory cycle with some utilities, but not others. So we have a pretty deep pipeline right now of a bunch of different partners we're working with. Just last year, we announced 2 programs with Southern California Edison, which is kind of the PG&E of the lower half of the state, and a few other regulated utilities. But there's a lot more coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that we're delineating what kind of power companies or utilities we're talking about when you're talking about the barriers, because I think sometimes the whole like utility like barrier gets very generalized. And actually, while the US energy system is quite confusing and annoying because it's so diffuse and it's different everywhere, you can actually end up using that to your advantage too. And there's so many different types of interesting energy companies out there. Like, I really love co-ops, and that's, you know, at least 30% of the US's, it's probably more than that, electricity is provided by nonprofit co-ops that call their customers members and not ratepayers.
Are those mostly rural?
It's rural. I mean, it started from like the whole Rural Electrification Act in the 20s, but you know, it is mostly rural. But you can find them elsewhere, and some of them are even starting to take over regulated utilities. And there's a lot of neat stuff happening from the community level or just like the alternative like utility level. And I think the more with a lot of people here who are really trying to grow these industries, it's just important to remember that, because for those of us from California, I think it's sometimes hard to remember that like California is its own system and it's crazy, and you know, you deal with it here, but it's not the same everywhere else. So I'm glad this kind of delineation is being discussed here.
So we talked a little while ago with GM and OnStar and Timber Rock, and they're having this issue around plug and play for batteries and the grid for electric vehicles. And EPRI, Electric Power Research Institute, is helping them find common ground among all the various car companies, and I presume battery companies as well, and utilities. What's the enabler here that you all need? Is it just going through 51 public utility commissions and some thousands of utilities in the U.S. one at a time, or is there a way to scale this? Matt?
We've spent a lot of time actually in DC and talking with White House Technology Office, Department of Energy, and the problem is none of this is centralized. So we actually do need to talk to not even 51 PUCs, but even more than that. There's regulators, there's the grid operators, and depending on the state and depending on the grid operator, there are different people in control and who would do the deal. So actually, it's for a small company like us, it's actually really hard. There are no good ways of doing this. So we actually have to be really selective about who we end up working with. Do
you sell outside the U.S.?
We do. So we sell in Canada, and actually with our new product, we're now selling in the UK as well.
And are there better models outside the U.S.?
So the UK is deregulated, much like Texas. It actually works really well. Like people pick their utility company. The sales cycle is actually very fast. I'm actually pretty impressed so far.
Mm-hmm. And other enablers, is it policy side? Is it industry standards?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of those things. And one of the benefits of NRG is our policy regulatory team is very strong across the country, as opposed to having to try to do it from scratch. But I think the way we're approaching it is it's not just about trying to sell to utilities or not just trying to sell a kilowatt hour better or trying to do that faster. It's really trying to understand what the value all of this provides. So one example is in my previous role when I was commercializing water and power technologies, mostly for the developing world, a lot of people say you can't actually charge people for water, but you would need to generate electricity to produce the clean water. And so we figured out, actually, if you just produce enough electricity for things that people will pay for, like charging your cell phone, you get water for free. And that kind of, you can't just talk to people about like kilowatt hours or gallons of water. And I actually think it's the same for the US now, even though we've been treating these industries like commodities or they're real-time delivery for us that we don't have to think about or pay that much for. Because all of us are becoming so electrified, like, because of iPhones and iPods, and there's always like a need for these things.
Thanks, Matt.
And so if you start thinking about solving that problem as opposed to how you deal with making this sort of weird, broken old system a little bit better. I guess that's how we're approaching it.
So this is interesting. Help us paint a picture, the two of you, about what that multiple benefit system might be. What would that look like? I mean, is there a vision?
So one of the things that we've discussed actually with NRG is, do we start doing paid plans for thermostats? So you're going to use X amount of cooling this summer. You'll pay a flat rate of $50 a month to cool your house, and that's just what it'll be. And Nest will help manage to make sure you stay in that budget. But it's flat rate plans, or you could charge your car for $25 a month. Those kinds of things, as opposed to have meeting per electron. Actually, starting to let people budget and do those kinds of things.
What would that do?
So it allows you to control your own finances. So whereas today you can just run your cooling all day long, in the end of the day you get hit with a $100 or $200 bill more than you thought. Now you can start budgeting, and with smart software you could actually start planning ahead.
I always thought maybe you're going there. Maybe it's there already. I don't have a Nest thermostat yet. But there's this beautiful round thing with this big number, 68 or something. But at what point does that put something with a dollar sign in front of it?
So we've talked about it, and it comes down to what people respond to and what they understand. And today, people, especially in the U.S., they know what temperature makes them comfortable. That said, in other countries, it's not necessarily the case. But in the U.S., people have kind of a temperature that they have for preference, and that's why we do it with temperature. That said, as demographics shift, maybe dollars are more important.
Uh-huh. So what's the vision at NRG?
So we're trying to overhaul infrastructure to be the right infrastructure for this century. And that's daunting and sounds expensive and requires, building big things is, while we love to do it because, for whatever reason why we like to build big things, but, if there's a way you can actually overhaul the infrastructure in this elegant, scalable, distributed way, so kind of like wrapping a new system around the built environment. And so that really that means there needs to, and we've heard a lot of great thinking here already about how buildings are built, or how we design things that go in those buildings, or how we think about the controls and the multi-directional flows of things like kilowatt hours, or even water, or even steam, and just embracing the fact that we think that makes sense, and then finding a way to get everyone to chip in and overhaul it together where everyone can kind of win. So, for instance, overhauling the thermostat industry makes a lot of things better. It saves money, it adds a beautiful thing to your home, and it actually starts kickstarting people thinking about energy efficiency, which, by the way, we've all been talking about that for 30 years, but now people really want to talk about it. And just stuff like that, I think we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years, these neat kind of elegant symbols that keep popping up and actually start really kind of like vines growing across a fence post. It's actually becoming part of the structure.
And part of what we expect in our home. So Nest, I guess you probably knew you weren't going to be the solo player for long. Just 2 days ago, Honeywell announced 6 Wi-Fi enabled thermostats. Is that
one with voice control?
With voice control.
Yes, so you could yell at your thermostat from across the room and say you're cold.
I heard that, and I had this vision of thermally incompatible couples where someone's saying it's too hot and someone's saying it's too cold, and all of a sudden this voice control enabled thermostat just going up in smoke. But that's another.
It's actually one of the things we joke about all the time. We can't be a marriage counselor, regardless of how smart we are.
But are they obviously a competitor, and a huge competitor, and the Honeywell thermostat was sort of the iconic thermostat for a long time. How do you see that? Are they growing the market? Are they now your biggest? Is this Android to iOS?
So Honeywell is definitely our biggest competitor. The way I see Honeywell is, they're the stalwart of the industry. They are kind of they're what we're trying to disrupt. So I love to see that we've kind of taken them to task and are having them introduce new products where they haven't really done that for years. Mm-hmm. So if anything, we're driving more awareness. And if there's more focus on thermostats today, then we accomplished our job. And that's going to help us sell more products too.
So tell us about smoke detectors. I mean, what's the big deal there? Why would you want a different kind of smoke detector?
They keep you from dying if there's fire in your house. It's actually pretty important. So like before, you're asleep, and if there's a fire in a room and you just suffocate, it's actually really bad. The whole idea is that it can wake you up in the middle of the night and tell you to get out of the house. But unfortunately, what happens is these things are so poorly designed that they wake you up in the middle of the night if there's no fire in your house. So then you take the batteries out, and if there really is a fire, then you die. So it's really kind of sobering.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's horrible, right? So if only someone could design a better product that actually would speak to you or let you know on your phone if the batteries are low and just let you know what's going on. So that's what we did. We were staring kind of at the ceiling and annoyed by how bad this product was and had to reinvent it. It was an obvious one.
You can see someone lying in bed wondering, what's the next thing we're going to make?
And there's a glowing red light on the ceiling. What does that red light even mean?
Yeah. Mo, let's take a question.
So we have one question from online asking about the difficulty that utilities are facing in actually measuring the benefits of the Nest system, so the energy efficiency gains, and just wondering from the perspective of both the panelists, how can you transition into actually seeing those real benefits at a utility scale?
The feedback loops, yeah.
Yes, so two answers. One, we acquired a company about 6 months ago called MyEnergy, which is basically like a mint.com for energy bills. Like you give them your utility login and password, and they go scrape all your data, and basically we're able to quantify how much we've saved. That's kind of for the consumer side. But more for the utility side, what we're doing actually is we're working with a few of our utility partners to actually do a study and to do some white papers on how much energy Nest actually saved this year. Like now that we've been in the market for 2 years and are in quite mass, we're able to actually quantify all this data now.
Okay. Anything else online for you? Okay. So we've got a bunch in this room, a bunch of innovators from big, GMs and big companies to a whole bunch of startups that are thinking about how do they play. What have you learned in terms of getting something that is grid connected in some fashion, or just maybe consumer electronics into the system that would help them, along the learning curve that you've been along? First, Matt?
Yes, so there are no standards to really anything. It's actually a giant pain as a product designer to have to build interconnected products because there's no one way of doing it. For example, we started working on demand response about a year ago, and what we learned is that each utility company, each region does something different, and we kind of threw up our hands like, how are we even going to do this? So we worked with a few partners, and we built something that works great for them, and are now trying to generalize it for more, but there's no standards for these kind of things. Like building connected devices in the home. So we build a connected smoke alarm, we build a connected thermostat. How do those products communicate and interact with other connected products in the home? Today, there's no standards. There's Zigbee, there's Z-Wave, there's Wi-Fi, there's Bluetooth. Like, how does one even design these kind of products? So I think this year, actually, in particular, in the next couple of years, some of these things will start to converge. And there's so many different kinds of products and different communication technologies. It's a good time for things to start to come together.
Robyn, let me reframe the question for you slightly, which is that is NRG working with or looking for innovative companies? And if so, what are you looking for? What kinds of, not just technologies, but what kinds of companies, and where in the trajectory of success do they want to be?
Sure, yep. So the product Station A is trying to hopefully develop is actually layers of a lot of different things, from software to hardware to just straight up knowledge of how the grid works and old school power infrastructure. And so we actually are being very open-minded at this moment about how we look for the technologies to partner with or use, or maybe there's some stuff we need to develop in-house. We're just trying to make it work as quickly as possible right now. And so there's a lot of cool stuff happening out there right now, and we're also getting hands-on. So for instance, the other day, we just partnered with this kind of nano microgrid product called Phoenix from Phoenix International, and we hooked up a parklet in our neighborhood to just provide some charging station for people that use it and try to paint a little story about how it's not just solar and it's not just a battery, but both together could be really wonderful. And we're just getting hands-on feedback from that. And then we have a much bigger scale project we're working on where we're doing the design work, and that's a huge learning curve, and that's already helped expose us to kind of the front-end players in all parts of that layering system. And then to be honest, we've noticed there's some holes that need to be filled, and we're hoping to help motivate talent to over to this space. I think we lost a little bit of it over in the last few years, and just getting people back to start thinking smartly about some of these really fascinating challenges. And I'm encouraged that I really love my team I was able to hire. It's really great folks, and they all joined a big power company. I mean, I don't think I could have done that a few years ago, and And now we're all doing it. And I think that trend can continue and get just much more innovation in the space that can help these integrated solutions really take off.
I think the idea of nano microgrid somehow, although it seems a little oxymoronic or something, that is sort of the right idea. Was how do these small little things, the parklets, add up into a systems change? And I think that's really what you guys and so many of us here at Verge are all about. So thanks so much. Please join me in thanking Robyn and Matt. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Robyn.